Welcome to another in our series of the psychological backstory to the Bible, where we will be looking at Ruth's implausible journey to Judaism. The Book of Ruth is considered in Judaism as a place where many of the laws of conversion are derived, and yet we don't see clearly in the story what inspired her to convert. So let me first give you a quick background, a quick summary. In case you don't remember the story, there's a prominent family of Elimelech and Naomi who were wealthy, and they were living in the land of Israel, and then the land was struck with a terrible famine, and Elimelech and Naomi decided to abandon their own homeland and to go, strangely enough, to a enemy country, Moab. And later on, the husband dies, Elimelech, and now Naomi is left, and they have two sons, and they stay there for about 10 years. The two sons pass away, but before they pass away, they each marry two princesses from Moab. So now for about 10 years, Ruth is living with her sons until they pass away, and the two princesses, and slowly but surely she loses all her money, and she decides she has to go back to the land of Israel in shame because it's the land that she abandoned, and she announces to her two daughters-in-law, I'm going to have to beg for food. It's going to be terribly painful for me to face this reality of going back, and I strongly advise you not to come with me. So one daughter-in-law complies and leaves, but the other daughter-in-law, Ruth, makes the famous statement, your nation is my nation, your God is my God. And that is considered a pivotal moment, really, when she converted to Judaism. So now let me just finish the story. So they go back, and Ruth ends up begging in the field of a very wealthy man who is related to Naomi, and he feels a family obligation to feed them and actually to take Ruth under wings and to marry her. And that's what happens. And then the book ends with the lineage of King David. And it starts from this marriage of Ruth and this landowner Boaz, and it goes all the way down to King David. And this is the Davidic line, which will end up to be the Messianic line. So now we go back to our original question. So why did Ruth convert? So let's go back and look at the Midrash. The Midrash usually tries to find one word in Hebrew and look for clues to give us a psychological insight into what's really going on, what is the backstory. So here, from the word Ruth itself, it derives a meaning. One is a very similar word, roata, which means to see, and the Midrash is trying to say that Ruth was a truth seeker. She saw something in the words of Naomi and the actions of Naomi, her mother-in-law. And the other is maratetet, which means trembling. And so the Midrash is saying she is someone who had an innate fear of God, and she was a truth seeker. So now at least you have a reason why this soul is on fire. It just needed some kind of catalyst. And that, of course, is her mother-in-law, Naomi. For those 10 years, she must have seen something in the character of Naomi which made her want to reject her own culture. To push on that further, I'm going to quote from a premier Kabbalistic text, the Zohar, which says that these two princesses were actually orphans because their father, King Eglon, was killed. Now, how was he killed? He was actually killed because he and a bunch of consortium of other nations actually plundered the land of Israel, took over part of it, made their life miserable, and this went on for a while until finally he was murdered, and then the Jews were able to be free of this terrible experience with this king. But it makes you wonder even more. Okay, so now we find out that these two orphans who were princesses are going to marry a Jew when their father was actually killed by a Jew who was rebelling against this awfully oppressive act that the king did. So it makes it a sort of bigger distance that Ruth had to go emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, from being the daughter of a king who was killed by a Jew to becoming a Jew. I'm now going to try out another theory, which is going to take all these disparate pieces and put them together. I'm going to call it the Batya effect. Now, who is Batya? Batya was the daughter of the emperor, the pharaoh of ancient Egypt, where the Jews were enslaved. And if you remember, there was an edict that the pharaoh gave, which is all Jewish boys had to be thrown in the river, and the desperate parents of Moses put him in a basket and put him down the river, and the daughter of Pharaoh took him and adopted him and unwittingly made her father, Pharaoh, raise this Jewish boy, of which he had ordered all Jewish boys to be killed. And she too was rebelling against the culture of her father and the repressive nature of the Egyptian society, and she saw something that attracted her to the moral fiber of the Israelites, and so that's why she did this tremendous act of rebellion. So I'm going to propose that this also is true, that you had this woman Ruth. We said that she was a truth seeker, that she was God-fearing, and she was a very sensitive person to the point where she could see the difference between the oppressive culture of Moab, where she came from, and her mother-in-law Naomi and the way she conducted herself. Someone from Moab who had such a special character that she was willing to give up her lifestyle as a former princess and go off with a destitute woman. This kind of character was needed also in the DNA of King David and ultimately of the Messianic line. So putting it all together, the answer to my question, why did she convert? She converted because she was a soul on fire because of her nature, her truth-seeking and God-fearing nature, and her sensitivity to the vast difference between the culture of Moab and the culture that she saw among Jews. These are the reasons why Ruth converted, and this is why it's such an important story in Judaism, because it adds so much to understanding what is necessary for the line of the kings, because all the kings came from Judah, and ultimately the Messiah is going to come from Judah. So what kind of character does the Messiah have to have, and what kind of leadership qualities does a king have to have? And of course, what characteristics does a true convert to Judaism need to possess? I look forward to your comments, and please like and subscribe. Thank you.